Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to What's on the Playlist today. Today, I'm going to talk about the best of the Flying Burrito Brothers, an image of which you will see here. And I guess I got the camera positioned oddly. So, too bad. I'm going to leave it where it is. So, Flying Burrito Brothers. Great name. Love the band. Love the name of the band. They were formed in the late 60s. Graham Parsons was fired from the Byrds, formed a couple other bands, wound up coming up with the name of the Flying Burrito Brothers, but they never actually performed under that name, so broke up, formed a different group, called them the Flying Burrito Brothers. Their first album, The Palace of Gilded Sin? Palace of Golden Sin? Damn it. Something along those lines. It's on here. It's on here. Give me a second. It's on here somewhere. Yeah, I think it's the Palace of Gilded Sin. Anywho, now that I've gone off topic slightly, their first album, their debut album, was actually critically well received. Critics and other musicians said it was a great album, but it didn't sell very well. It didn't do very well on the radio. It peaked at the top 200s at, I think, like 168, which is not very high. So the band declined to perform at Woodstock, decided to go on tour, and the tour just wound up as a disaster because of drug and alcohol abuse. Their album label decided to wanted to do a bunch of country cover songs. Wanted to switch the band's sound to more country. They recorded a bunch of tracks, decided to scrap it and come up with a second album, completely original material. That didn't even break the top 200. Their third album was, again, critically acclaimed. Did slightly better. I think it peaked at 138. So, in spite of this being like what everyone thought was a great band, they just couldn't get any radio play. So they toured under various incarnations for years. I think they might still be touring, who knows. This greatest hits album basically covers those first three albums, plus at least one song that was part of the abandoned tracks from their prior to making their second album. The Flying Burrito Brothers are sometimes credited with being the originator of country rock. I'm not sure how true that is. They do have a good country rock sound. I had mentioned that, like, band members came and went. The first three albums are really the only ones that were under like the Flying Burrito Brothers, with Graham Parsons from the Byrds. He basically was kicked out of the band because he showed up at a concert like 5 minutes before they went on stage. He was hammered, totally drunk, and was performing different songs than the band was performing. So it's like they kicked him out of the band. But they assumed he just wanted to hang out with the Rolling Stones because he was friends with Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. He just wanted to hang out and party with the Rolling Stones, which is why he got kicked out of the Byrds, by the way. Excuse me. I did some looking up, because when I was like looking up the band's history and stuff, it was like, yeah, this person left, they brought in someone else. They didn't have a drummer, they brought in a session drummer until this guy became their full-time drummer. Then these people left. This band is broken up and reformed so many times with so many different people. In this band's history, they have had 54 different members. Because people just kept leaving, and they'd bring in someone else, and someone else would leave. This band did not have a solid roster. I found that highly amusing. But they were also highly influential. A lot of other people, I think it was it Emmylou Harris? I don't remember the names right now off the top of my head, but there were several artists who did become famous who were heavily influenced by the Flying Burrito Brothers. And they've got a good country rock sound. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of country, but I still like the album. This is one of those, the Flying Burrito Brothers is more of, they're more of a musician's band than a band for the common man. Doesn't mean that people won't like them. Like I said, they just couldn't get any traction for radio play to get popular, to get well known. You know, they toured, they put out albums. The fact that they broke up and members constantly rotated through the band probably didn't help. But even having said that, they still maintained a good, solid sound, which is hard to do when you're not playing with the same group all the time. When you're constantly trying to, you've got to be a good musician to come into a band and just pick up their sound and play with them. So the fact that they managed to maintain a good, solid sound for as long as they have. This, for me, this was one of those bands that I was aware of, but didn't know them well enough to really want to buy a ton of their stuff or buying any of their stuff. I picked this album up mostly because my older sister was purging her record collection. She's like, yeah, you know, I don't listen to these albums much anymore. And I was like, before you get rid of those, can I go through your collection? And I wound up picking up like 20 of her records, CDs mostly. And this is one of them. And I really wasn't as familiar with their stuff until I got this album. Like I said, I knew of their name. My older sister had their album. I'd probably heard the songs before from, you know, my older sisters, my parents, things like that. So I'd probably heard it before, not really kind of clicked at all until buying this album and actually sitting down and listening to it. It's like, this is solid. It's not an album that I felt I needed, that, you know, listening to it, it's not one of those albums that I felt I needed to have. I picked it up on a whim. You know, like I said, my sister was purging her collection. I picked it up because I recognized the name. And while I will admit this is good stuff, it's not the kind of stuff that makes me go, oh my God, I need to have this. I grabbed it on a whim. And because I thought the name was funny. I've always thought the name was funny. But that doesn't mean it's a bad album and you shouldn't go out and pick it up. Because of my feelings about it and the fact that the band itself never really charted that well, I don't necessarily think I would recommend you go out and buy the album. I mean, like I said, this album has 21 songs on it, compiled from basically 3 separate albums. So it's basically like half of each album, half of their first 3 albums is this, you know, but it's still good stuff. So I would recommend you like try and find something to listen to first before you run out and buy it. You can go on YouTube and just, you know, go on the internet, look up a track list of like, you know, their first couple albums. Go to YouTube, listen to them, get a sample. You know, if you like country rock music, bands of this style, I definitely say give them a listen, because there's a good chance you might like it. You might not love it, but you'll probably like it. That's how I feel about it anyway. As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.